Why don't we go ahead and get started? We have most people here. What I'd like to do, first of all, is thank Shelby and Sarah and Alisa for joining us today. What my goal here today is to give everybody an overview of what's out there and what exists to help people, especially freelancers and gig economy workers, in the time of COVID-19. We're going to basically what we're going to do is go over some introductions and logistics. Shelby's going to talk about things, particularly she's very well versed in what the SBA is offering. Alisa's going to talk about some things that she's come across from the Saratoga Arts perspective. Sarah and her team have been finding resources for musicians, and she's going to talk about those. And then at the end, I will unmute people, and you can ask questions. So what I'm hoping is that you can ask questions of the people who are here. You can ask questions of each other if they've heard about something. But the goal here is to provide an overview. If you, it is best, we can't give you individual advice on what you should or should not do, unfortunately, because everybody has a very different situation. And what we're hoping to do is give you an overview of who's there and point you in the direction of resources that can help you. So with that, I would like to turn it over to Shelby.
Thank you so much.
The introductions first.
Go ahead.
Shelby's president of the Saratoga County Prosperity Partnership, and she has been working with small businesses in the county as they navigate through all of this, everything that's going on. So I want to start with, we'll start with Shelby. Alisa Forman is the education coordinator at Saratoga Arts, and when we started putting this together, Saratoga Arts told us that she was the person to talk to because she was the one who was keeping an eye on all of the resources out there. And Sarah Craig, I'm sure everybody pretty much knows Sarah Craig, Executive Director of Caffe, Lena. So thank you all for helping us. I really appreciate your time. And Shelby, go ahead and talk to us.
Well, thank you so much, Beth, for inviting me to participate. And I'm thrilled to be here, amongst Alisa and Sarah. I'm learning a lot from everyone here, and I hope that I can be a helpful resource to all of you because, you may be artists, you might be 1099s. However, this is how you make a living, and, you are your own business. So I can tell you about some of the resources that exist out there right now. I can tell you what we know, and I can tell you that there's a lot that we don't know at this point. But the more information that we start to gather from you, the more we can advocate and try to find ways to help you in this really challenging situation that is ultimately no fault of your own. You are not able to operate as an artist, as a business, because of situations so far beyond your control. And I think that, right now the federal government recognizes that. And I can talk a little bit about some of the programs out there and what the purpose of them is. So as of a few weeks ago, the federal government passed, or as of a few weeks ago, the federal government passed a series of programs and a economic recovery package to deal with the economic impact of coronavirus COVID. First and foremost, the Small Business Administration had a program called the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Fund. And this program allowed businesses and self-employed folks to apply for up to $2 million to cover working capital. That is actually a loan fund. It's got a term of 30 years with a 3.75% interest rate. And upon the application process, there's also a portion that is essentially considered an advance. So for employers up to 10 people, they can get a $10,000 advance. And if they don't, if they're not approved for the loan, they can keep those funds. but if you don't have 10 employees, they consider it, if you're a sole proprietor, um, it's $1,000 for every individual that works for that business that can be seen as an advance. So that advance can come to you regardless of the fact that whether you are approved for that loan or not. That is one resource. But there's a second resource that the federal government approved, and that is called the Payroll Protection Program. Essentially, what it is, it's a supercharged Small Business Administration 7A loan that has been out there in the marketplace for many years. And the government realized that when they opened the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Fund, almost everyone in the country started applying for it simultaneously, and they just could not manage that level of volume. So to really get money back out onto Main Street USA, the way that this payroll protection program works is that you can apply for the funds directly through an SBA approved lender right now. Right now in Saratoga County, Adirondack Trust is one of those, Saratoga National Bank, Glens Falls National, NBT Bank, Boston Spa National. So if you have a banking relationship with one of these community banks, they've already started accepting applications as of last Friday. There are many more banks that are coming online, and credit unions as well that are becoming SBA approved lenders to help get this money out on the street. As a 1099 employee or a 1099 gig economy worker and artist, you are going to be able to apply for these funds on Friday. So it opened up to businesses with employees and not-for-profits last Friday, and it's my understanding that over $2 billion in funds were already approved as of Saturday, but they're holding off on letting sole proprietors and if you don't have any employees, then you can start applying for this as soon as Friday the 10th. And how does that work for you? So for businesses and sole proprietors, things like your salary, rent, and utilities are considered forgivable. So if, like, for example, they want you to take a look at your past year's payroll, take an average of your payroll, and you can qualify for 2.5 times that amount. And whatever your average full-time equivalent employees were, they want you to try to maintain that level of employment. So the whole purpose of this fund is to ensure that businesses have overhead to keep operating and that businesses have funds in the bank to keep paying their workforce so that when we're ready to start, to go back to business after this COVID crisis ramps down, that businesses are ready to get back to work. But like I said, portions of this fund are forgivable. Now, as an independent contractor and self-employed person, you don't necessarily have a payroll, you don't use paychecks to pay yourself, but how they look at your compensation, you can get up to $100,000, and it looks like the sum of payments of any compensation or income that a sole proprietor and independent contractor has received, including your wage, commission, income, and net earnings from employment or similar compensation that amounts to no more than $100,000 a year prorated. And so as of Friday, you can start applying for these funds. There's also unemployment. I have to tell you, the unemployment, I gave Beth some resources that are specifically for independent contractors and how to get through that process on the New York State Department of Labor's online portal, but I can't promise that it's going to be a speedy or nimble process because, again, like the federal government, they have never dealt with the amount of volume and the amount of people trying to access the system at one time. So what I would try to prescribe right now is some patience in dealing with the system. And, if you're having any challenges, I suggest reach out to us if there's anything that I can do for you. I will do my best to connect you to people that I know in the unemployment system or that I know that can help you through this, uh, you know, trying to recover from this and try to get funds. We also have two key resources. If you've never necessarily filled out an SBA loan application before, we have the Small Business Development Center that is down in Albany. They're a small business administration affiliate, and they can help walk you through this process and walk you through how to fill out an application for the payroll protection program or how to fill out an application for the economic injury disaster loan fund if that's the path you choose to go. And you can actually apply for both. You just can't use them for the exact same thing. That's considered double dipping and that's not allowed. But you can apply for both for different things. But the Small Business Administration can, we have resources locally on the ground that can help walk you through that process. And we also have videos of and PowerPoint presentations that we can send out to you that cover a lot of the frequently asked questions and what qualifies, what doesn't qualify. But we're here to try to serve as a resource. We're working very closely with our Chamber of Commerce, our Convention and Tourism Bureau, a lot of our not-for-profits, our Downtown Business Association, Saratoga Economic Development Corporation, which I worked for 13 years, and we're a strategic partner with them. And we're all working together to ensure that we're working towards for the best interest of our small business community. What's really important for us to understand is how are you being impacted and what exactly do you need? Because a federal program that's been created in 2 weeks is essentially like Swiss cheese. We know there's a lot of holes in it. We know there's people are going to fall through the cracks, and ultimately we're here to advocate for you. On our website, saratogapartnership.org, under COVID resource, I have a business impact survey that I strongly encourage everyone to fill out if you can. It puts you, we help collect this data, where you are, what your pressing needs are, and we are pushing this information up to key decision makers. And, we've already used this data to push up to state representatives, our congressional representatives, and our representatives in the U.S. Senate to help them understand what we need, what the job impact has been, what the dollar impact has been, and as the gig economy, which we know is so large in our region and so impactful in our region, we want to hear from you what matters so that we can be helpful. I think
and all of these links will go on the ArtSpark website, and I have all your email addresses, and I will send out a link to everybody once we've got the recording live and all the resources are up there.
So
Thank you, Shelby. What I'd like to do is do all the questions and answers at the end and do more of it because I think there's going to be overlap for everybody. Our next person is Alisa Forman from Saratoga Arts, and they've been working on some funding specifically for artists. One of the things I do want to point out that is Shelby's been talking about the Small Business Association and business loans. As an artist who makes a living as an artist, you are a business. Whether you're an whether or not you're organized as an LLC or whatever, you are a business. So you do have the ability to take advantage of some of these programs because they really have taken a look this year at the gig economy. Alisa, can you go ahead and tell us about some of the things you've been finding that are specifically geared toward artists?
Sure. Thank you so much for including us and allowing me to be here today. This is a great resource, and I'm really excited to have the opportunity to talk to you all. Really, throughout these past weeks, as soon as we kind of knew that all of this was happening, everyone that I know kind of, just sort of started Googling and looking for resources and thinking of those sites that we check on a regular basis that we know are good resources for artists. Hearing about the government programs is fantastic. It's wonderful that that stimulus is there and those opportunities are there. But there are opportunities beyond that and things, from private foundations, through municipalities, things like that, that are, more geared towards individual artists or whomever. So we've really been collating a lot of that information and putting it together on our website at Saratoga Arts. Like I see listed below, NISCA is always a great resource. I also have to put in a little bit of a plug for our own program. We're part of the decentralization grant through NISCA each year. That cycle is complete for 2020, but the 2021 cycle begins soon. Those are project specific. So you need to have a project in mind, and obviously that money is not going to come in for quite a long time. But if you have something that you're working on or would like to get involved in that, we will be having seminars upcoming with how to apply for those. And that's something that we do every year. It's resources for those who are local in Saratoga, Fulton, and Montgomery counties. Elsewhere in New York, you have the same opportunities, and on a national scale as well for anyone who's from further afield. So those are always things to look into, consider, even though those are on a set schedule. So you don't necessarily have the opportunity for immediate relief. But if you have a project in mind, you do have the opportunity to start thinking about that and working towards that. NYFA, the New York Foundation for the Arts, is a fantastic resource. On their website, they seem to be continually updating with different opportunities, grants, etc. So I would definitely check them out. A lot of these are very specific, so you need to be from a particular region to apply, or a particular type of artist. Some are visual arts only, some are musicians only, and so on. So it's hard to give a great overview of what might be accessible to everyone because you all have your unique individual needs. But just looking out there, checking all of those various resources, like I said, we are constantly updating. There are even some that haven't made it up there yet. I found out about something called the Artist Relief Project, which is just funded by whomever, anyone who has the means to participate. You apply for that through a Google form. It's for artists of all abilities, levels, anywhere in their career. So if you're just trying to start out, that's still a consideration. You're still eligible to apply. How much those grants will be, a lot of that just depends on who gives and how much. But resources like that are around, and that, if you Google that, you'll just come across it. I'm also going to add that to our website. Something really neat that I found out about just the other day is, again, really for visual arts based, but it's a hashtag, which is hashtag Artist Support Pledge. It's just kind of a neat way of connecting people, which is that people will post on social media using that hashtag. And the idea is to support fellow artists by buying their artwork. And once you've made a certain amount of money from people purchasing your artwork, you then go turn around and buy somebody else's artwork. It's all supposed to be very reasonably priced. Just a way to keep people in the game, communicating, supporting other artists, little things like that, that really, I hope, can help keep these things going and keep programs and keeping artists occupied and busy. In addition to all of the funding resources, a lot of organizations, including my own Saratoga Arts, are doing ongoing webinars or meetups. We actually have one this coming Thursday at noon, a lunchtime meeting. All artists of all disciplines, backgrounds, anywhere are welcome to join for a conversation. We'll just be sharing resources, talking about our current challenges, what we're facing, what we're looking to work on, resources that we've found out about, and how we can support each other. So I'm going to be continually, again, updating our website with that information. Here you have the Saratoga Arts regular grant website, which has a lot of these resources, but our education website will also have a number of opportunities just for artists to connect, to be part of this. If you're looking for feedback on your work or just a way to stay connected during all of this, I think to me that is really very important. just staying connected and being part of a community. So I'm really looking for opportunities to make that happen for people. And likewise, it's as simple as, sharing your work, whether it's visual or performance-based or however, through social media, online. I know I personally am happy to share your work, so that, just developing that audience. It's not a financial resource. And I know that a lot of this is about how to keep yourself going financially. But I know that we're also really just focused on keeping the community going. So beyond all of that, just some other things to think about in addition to all of these sites, I really recommend checking out Americans for the Arts. They have an ongoing blog with a lot of resources. Some of that is more geared towards larger organizations, or how to deal with things like performances getting canceled, but they're updating that regularly, with just thoughts from people all over the country, and resources and ideas. So I hope that some of that is helpful in terms of, things that are both monetary based and also just sort of more community based, to help keep us going and connected during this crazy time.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Sarah, can you talk to us about some of the things you've been working on for musicians?
Sure. So first of all, Beth, thank you for including me. And when I got the request to be part of this, I knew that there must be no real experts out there yet on all of this if you asked me to be part of it. So I will say that what I have to offer is similar to what we just heard from Alisa, which is that our inboxes have gotten flooded with wonderful articles and links and so forth that have been sent by us, by members of the music community and the arts community, just trying to help each other be aware of the information that's out there. I'd like to just first of all say, and Shelby, I think, can correct me if this is not right. What I have observed is that most of the programs that I'm seeing out there, in order to qualify for them as a musician, you need to be able to prove that you received at least 50% of your income from music, and you need to be able to demonstrate a loss of gigs due to coronavirus. So you're going to need to be able to supply, for example, emails with venue owners and so forth, that show that the gig was canceled. The gig, you might be showing the impact of coronavirus because you were ordered by a doctor to self-isolate because of some health condition. It could be because the venue's closed. It could be that your travel was impeded by travel restrictions. So those are all reasons why you might qualify for some of these programs. And I also would like to say that Shelby talked a little bit about ways that they were collecting information from people that would then be valuable in terms of bringing resources to this area. If you are being asked by a music organization or a lobbying group that you're part of to help support their pressure campaign to extend these services to musicians, do everything you can to get behind that. The reason that musicians and gig workers have been included in this relief program from the federal government is largely because of Music Cares, which is an organization run by the Grammy Foundation that managed to generate thousands upon thousands of letters, emails, and phone calls to members of Congress to press them to include the arts community. We can't let up that pressure because this is a sector that will get forgotten if we don't keep up the pressure. So do your part with that. I want to underscore a little bit of what Alisa said in terms of emotional support that's out there. I think musicians, maybe more than any other kind of artists, are accustomed to connecting with a live audience, usually several times a week. Being a musician is a social, public line of work. And to be suddenly cut off from that is a shock to the system. Many musicians have struggled with addiction. There are AA meetings that are being run just like this phone call online every day. if you or your kids or your partner are really struggling, there's an organization called Porter's Call. And that offers free services. It's limited to music industry personnel and their families. It's an online counseling service that's got years of experience, and you can find them at porterscall.org. And then in this local area, the Southern Adirondack Recovery Alliance is carrying forward a very vigorous program of peer-to-peer counseling by phone, and their number is 518-306-3048. And then, as Shelby indicated, it may be a little while before you see some of this money in your pocket. If you went into this crisis without savings, you could be in a pinch that's very immediate, and we understand that. The Salvation Army in Saratoga is delivering food to people in Saratoga County. There's a sign-up form right at the top of their Facebook page. And the Franklin Community Center is taking phone appointments for their food pantry. Call ahead. They'll put together a meal package for you. You can pick it up curbside. And the Franklin Community Center is at 518-587-9826. Now, another category, nobody is better prepared to meet this crisis with creativity than you guys. A lot of musicians have taken to social media to perform for fans. Caffe Lena, right out of the gate, started something called the Stay Home Sessions. These are nightly performances that we're streaming through our YouTube channel. And since March 15th, we have raised a little more than $15,000 for musicians through this program. When you're streaming on Facebook or Instagram or some of the other social media platforms or on YouTube, the important thing is that you have a secondary platform where you can take small donations and tips. So there's a chat usually involved as people are watching the show. Get somebody to help you manage that chat so that you can focus on putting on a great performance that really inspires and connects deeply with your fans, and let your friend continually drop that tip link into the chat stream so that all of those people who are so grateful for the respite that you are providing to them can help you out with a little donation. You can also teach through Zoom, and we are continuing our Caffe Lena School of Music through Zoom. This is for children. Families register their kids for a fee, and then they get a private code to access the call at lesson time. So, you know, nobody knows everything, and everybody has figured out something. So yes, you could teach instrument lessons, but think outside the box a little bit. There may be other things you can teach. For example, you could do some songwriting coaching. You could offer a clinic on stage performance. You could offer a clinic on how to book a gig or plan a tour, how to market yourself, how to build a website for musicians. You could offer social media tips. You know, there's something that you know how to do really well, and this would be a great time to share that and to charge a nominal fee and earn a little bit of cash to get you through another week. Finally, we have also collected on our website many ideas of different foundations, private grants, as well as more information on government grants that you can get as a musician. If you go to the homepage of caffelena.org, you'll see a prominent box that you can click on, COVID-19 resources for musicians, and take a look at that list. A lot of these grants are not big. They might be in the $200 to $1,000 range. Many of them are paid directly to landlords or mortgage holders. Some are cash in the pocket. And the best resource on that page is right up at the top. It's called Music COVID Relief. It's a great jumping off point to find out what kind of resources are available to you, whether you're in the local 518 or you're in some other part of the country. It's a great list.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm going to stop sharing this screen because what I'm going to do is unmute everybody, and you are welcome to ask questions. There is also a chat function here that I will keep an eye on, and if you want to send a chat, I can send that message.
Beth, you know, I hadn't even really thought about other resources that we have available, but I just want to put in a couple of plugs quickly. You know, as Sarah had mentioned, you know, if you want to learn how to, or if you want to build your own website, we work closely with a group called Albany Can Code that is based in Albany, that they do front end web development training, which, you know, for all intent and purposes to help people learn how to do some of this work. And we found that whether it's graphic artists, visual artists, and even musicians, if this is something that you wanted to learn. And I know ArtSpark is also a tremendous, tremendous resource to provide a lot of these. No, you're welcome. But, you know, right now, if you're sitting idle and not able to earn a living, between the coding program, which we have workforce development grants that can help pay tuition for you, so it's at no cost to you. And our Saratoga County BOCES, they have employment training opportunities, which is all online, and our Saratoga County One Stop Center also has a broad library of training resources. So, you know, if now is the time, I'm not saying choose a new vocation, but I'm saying complement what you already do. If you're looking for workforce training, that's something that our organization is also extremely active. And I'm also active in trying to find funding for you to do those. So that's it.
Do we have any questions for any of the presenters?
Hello?
Yep.
Hi, Alisa mostly? Hi. I was wondering if
You are?
I'm Mark Black.
Okay.
Is there any concern that next year, I mean, obviously our state and federal agencies are spending a lot of money. Is there any concern that next year the NISCA grants or the grants from Saratoga Arts through NISCA will be reduced? There'll be less money available?
I think that that's always a possibility. We never know for sure what that funding is going to be. We do know that the funding is going to happen. We are already planning for the next grant cycle, and our organization is in contact with NISCA about the regulations. And I do have to say they've been really flexible and great about people who were awarded grants this year, about making sure that the projects can happen in some way, whether it's moved online or at a different time during the year. So they are as aware as anyone of the current challenges and of the situation. So while I don't know specifically what the individual grants will look like next year, that is something that is on our mind, and we are opening the grant season as usual, and we'll be communicating all that information. In fact, I know that we're getting ready to start publicizing some of the seminars and things that are necessary to begin that grant process.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Great question. Does anybody else have a question? Anybody? Well, if not, Shelby, you're going to say something?
I was saying I would be curious to hear feedback for what some of the common challenges are right now. I'm sure that, you know, Sarah and Alisa are hearing a lot, but you know, as people who might be 1099 workers, or just I'm curious to hear from everyone what your challenges are right now during this.
I know I received grants through Saratoga Arts, and Alisa, Diane has been great. Diane,
Pass that on. Diane's one.
yeah, she's been absolutely great about us adapting our programs. The biggest concern we have, is how to keep people engaged. I think, quite honestly, there's a lot of depression going on where people, they sort of, there isn't the same energy about getting involved in community. Everyone's sort of sitting at home. And, I'm also on the board at the Brookside Museum, and even within the trustees, it's been very difficult to motivate people. So I think that's the biggest challenge I know I'm seeing now. How do we deal with the psychological effects of the disease, not just the financial effects?
Yeah, definitely.
Good
So,
question. I see that Cecilia Lockwood's on. Are you hearing anything on Beekman Street?
Hi. Hi, hear me?
Yes, what are you hearing on Beekman Street?
I are lucky that we can work in our studio solo, and we're getting things done. But I didn't even walk the street, quite frankly, for a while. Hi, Kelly. I see Kelly here. We are working with Diane at Saratoga Arts, and we also have the same working with us for the Beacon Street Art Fair. We're still in limbo. It was supposed to be scheduled for June 14th. We're not sure it's going to happen or not. We're just kind of waiting to see. The artists are still, no one has asked for a refund. I think we had one artist ask for a refund, but everyone's kind of wait and hold pattern. So not sure. I mean, we're not sure if it even makes sense to go forward, because even if things start improving next month, I don't know if people are going to be ready to meet en masse in middle of June. At any rate, as far as the other things go, like I saw I think it was NISCA or maybe New York Foundation for the Arts had put out info about women artists over 40. There was going to be applications accepted starting, I think it was yesterday, for help for that age group and that demographic. And so I went online just because I had some time last night. I wanted to figure out what's going on, and the applications had already closed. Such an overwhelming response, and it was only New York women artists over 40. So that kind of goes to show you there's huge needs. And I hear from other artists, I on a Facebook group of independent 1099 type artists and also artists with small businesses, that government sites are just impossible to navigate, very hard to get on. Things they get turned off, and it's just not set up very efficiently yet. So it's just been, not something I want to deal with right now, but I'm afraid that probably going to be gone, because I know
Money is available
what I know from my end.
Yeah. From what I understand, the money, I think it's like $350 billion, but it's available on a first come, first served basis, and it's available until June 30th. So, in local organizations can help be that conduit to make the black hole of federal website portals a lot less scary. So, people are here to help you. And like I had referred to the Small Business Development Center, there's also an organization called SCORE, Service Corps Retired Executives. And, as Beth had said in the beginning, you are also business people if you're self-employed. And if there's an organization out there to help you kind of envision what's next and envision how you can possibly change your business model, there are advisors who can help walk you through that process. And I think, probably take some of the fear and some of the depression, honestly, out of this really frightening process and situation.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any other feedback?
I saw a message come across the screen briefly from Bob Mills, who's Did you catch what that question was, Beth, or can Bob restate it?
I was just renaming his user, but if he's got any feedback or anything he'd like to share, go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, I'm curious about Sarah's thoughts on the music supply chain. All the aid seems to be directed towards musicians. How about everybody else, the technicians, the worker bees, the promoters, the venues themselves? Any thoughts there, Sarah?
Yeah, if you go again to that really cool website that I mentioned called Music Relief, very clear that it does include the entire span of the music industry. It is not just for gigging musicians. It does encompass everybody else. And I know that when Music Cares was really leading the effort, they were talking about, the studios, the backstage workers, the whole, like you said, supply chain. So those businesses are included either in the funding that Shelby's talking about or in some of these private foundations coming forward with very small bits of emergency funding that are out there.
Thank you. Other questions? Other comments or other feedback?
Can I ask for, I have a question, and this is a question for Shelby, and I may be the only person in this whole group who doesn't really understand this very well, but so sometimes when I'm making out a performer,
When you're making out a what?
sometimes when I'm making out a paycheck to a performer, it's just to their name. It's just them, their private checking account. And sometimes when I'm making out a paycheck, it's, it might be Joe Folk Singer LLC. So, or some other business name. If somebody is just getting paid private name and they are not $600 on the gig, so therefore they don't have to report the income, where to some of this assistance that you're talking about?
I'm sorry, I was losing you. Someone's microphone is kind of all over the place.
I've been muting people. I think I got the question, Sarah. It's if you're paying to a personal. So sometimes you pay to, Joe Smith, and then sometimes you pay to Joe Smith LLC. If you're just paying and you're not reporting because it's under $600 reporting level, are they still eligible for these kinds of programs? Is that what you're asking, Sarah?
That is what I'm asking, because it might be 100% of their income, but 100% of their income or very small portion of it has ever been reported.
Yeah, that's definitely, it's a tax question, and I wouldn't send them directly to the federal government to ask that question. I'd probably, I'm going to find a nice tax advisor that can probably help answer that on their behalf. But, I don't necessarily have the answer for that. I'd probably go and find the answer, and I'd make sure to report back to this group. And again, I mean, if the only income that you've ever been earning is through your work, whenever you get the government involved in your personal life or your business, you are inviting those kinds of questions that, you're not reporting any of your earned income.
Well, it's legal because you don't have to report unless it's a $600, unless it meets.
Yeah. So if all of your performances are under $600, I can help get that question answered.
Okay.
But I think that falls within that sole proprietor. You're not you don't send them a 1099 at the end of the year, correct? Because
Right.
it's not reported. I'd have to find that out. And I'm not an accountant, and I don't practice law. So I wouldn't rely on my tax advice, but I'd find out from an accountant.
Yeah.
And I will find out.
Thank you. We'll get that answer back to this group. Is there anyone else with anything? in that case, I want to thank everyone for being here and listening in. I especially want to thank Shelby and Alisa and Sarah for joining us and giving us their experience and their advice. And I will get all of this information posted on the ArtSpark website, and we'll make sure it gets shared out through social media. And I have all your email addresses, so I'm going to send it out to you individually by email as well. So thank you again. I really appreciate all your help.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Thank you.
A great one.